We know that there was that attack and a burning out of the encampment of asylum seekers in Dublin on Friday night. We know there was an attack on a refugee centre on Thursday night in Donegal. What is going to be done, A, about the accommodation crisis for people here seeking international protection, but also about clamping down on this level of violent anti-immigration sentiment, protest and attacks on people who come here who are vulnerable?
Well, the violence was deeply disturbing in the last number of days, and it represents sinister intimidation of really vulnerable people, and it's appalling and unacceptable. The state has provided accommodation for over 84,000 people who've arrived here. That compares to just over 8,000 people at the start of 2022. So we've had a really when you look at the response from the state, there's been a huge work conducted by many officials and public servants in actually providing accommodation for over 84,000 people, and 98 people that hadn't accommodation over the weekend have now been offered accommodation.
Nonetheless, we think there's about 500 people who don't have accommodation. What's going to happen to them?
So we have a number of other accommodation offers coming on stream in the next number of weeks, and the government is doing all it can to provide additional accommodation and working with agencies across the state.
But are you saying it's going to take a number of weeks so we're going to have 500 people in tents for a number of weeks?
No, I'm just saying there's accommodation coming on stream. Every week we have accommodation coming on stream, and that's an absolute focus of officials. But at the same time, we have people still arriving, so that there's an unpredictability to the numbers that arrive on a daily or a weekly basis, and obviously that impacts our ability to accommodate everybody. But all agencies of the state are working together to provide a humane and proper response to people, and I think that's been the impulse of the Irish government. 84,000 people accommodated.
No, and I understand the level of pressure that the system is under. Can I ask you a last question? There appears to be growing unease within the rank and file members of Garda Síochána about how these anti-immigration protests are being policed. They said a more proactive element needs to be brought in to deal with them, that there is known criminality, that this violence is predictable, and that there is concerns that the softly approach perhaps isn't working.
Well, look, the behaviour of some individuals at these protests is completely unacceptable and represents, as I said, sinister intimidation of really vulnerable people. And we need to work with Garda Síochána on how best to police such appalling and unacceptable behaviour and the seriously.
Are we going to clamp down harder?
Well, I think obviously the Garda Síochána have I trust their model of policing, which is about engaging and properly responding. But anyone who was involved in the serious intimidation, but also the burning of the materials on the street, that's completely unacceptable. Right. Okay. And they need to be addressed through the criminal process. Anyone who burnt out the materials on the street, it's absolutely unacceptable.
Thank you for speaking, Minister, to Newstalk Breakfast this morning.